This has been one heck of a week for us here at the show. As I said yesterday and previous shows before this, the things that we're learning and unfolding through all the reporting that we're hearing about how deep the Chinese ties go into this country just keeps getting worse. Our senses got kicked off last week, the whole situation with the Freeland campaign being attacked, and funny enough how those attacks slanted and favored the Carney campaign. Then we hear about how deep the fentanyl ties go in the organized crime and the triad groups supported by the Chinese Communist Party, working with Mexican cartels to launder their money here in Canada and making Canada a hub for money laundering in the world. We learned that after the $3 billion that TD Bank was fined in the United States, we didn't even so much as do an investigation on TD Canada Trust here in Canada. And then we also learned that when the Chinese police stations were discovered, there were been no arrests made. And the most that we got out of it was Justin Trudeau was concerned about it. So that is all the things that happened under Justin Trudeau's watch. Not saying it all fell under the Liberal Party. This stuff has been going on for decades at this point. But it's all coming to a head because of the weakness in this Justin Trudeau party. And now, we are now seeing Mark Carney looking to benefit from the same connections that Trudeau has. I'm telling you right now, folks, the comment where Justin Trudeau said, "I appreciate the basic dictatorship of China," in his lead up in the 2015 campaign was no mistake. It's only getting worse the more that we dig. But we look here, brighter days. Danielle Smith talking about how all the premiers went down to DC to make their case heard and see if they can come to an agreement with the American administration. She says, "I'm here in Washington, D.C. with my fellow premiers to highlight to U.S. lawmakers how millions and millions of Canadians and Americans depend on free and fair trade. I'll connect to champion Alberta and Canada's story while making it clear to the U.S. administration that we're serious about tackling drugs like fentanyl and protecting our borders." And that, my friend, I'm very happy to see that there's some movement there. But all the stuff that's been coming to the surface through the work of Sam Cooper, through the work of Mark Cahodes, Bob Mackin, and others is not giving me faith that the Trump government is going to be satisfied with what the premiers are doing unless key premiers are doing their jobs. Right now, we're seeing some good movement in Ontario and Alberta. Right now, we're seeing a lot of sluggish movements in BC, where a lot of this crap is happening. And David Eby knows what's going on, and he refuses to take any action on it. That is the concern. That is the update to where we are now. And Sam Cooper dropped this today, saying, "Podcast coming up detailing active Beijing support networks for Mark Carney in the riding that was focus of Hoag's second phase. Hat tip to Bob Mackin for some video findings. The fact this MSS targeted BC riding is so active after the foreign interference inquiry, likely noted in Washington, D.C. More info is going to be dropping based on the connections that Beijing has or trying to make with Mark Carney. When we can draw some of this back to 2021, where a lot of the election interference concerns started coming up, which led to the inquiry in the first place. Reason why this popped up again and why people are looking back on 2021 is because Mark Carney went and campaigned in the riding where all of this was happening. And the reason why people were a little concerned about it was because CCP Connected Media was in the audience. The member of the United Front group was also in attendance, which directly is affiliated with the CCP. And Mark Carney appeared on Chinese media, as we can see here.
2025年1月16日，加拿大前央行行长、现任自由党政府经济顾问
So people's backs got up to those who understand what's going on, what is happening. And we're just like, oh, so all the inroads that the CCP has been making in Vancouver and BC, specifically in this case, Richmond, Mark Carney is going to look to leverage. So, you know what? Let's bring you up to speed with what happened in 2021 with a liberal candidate named Parm Bains versus conservative candidate Kenny Chiu. This was an article from the Bureau. It says 10 days before Canada's 2021 election, Justin Trudeau's candidate in Richmond, former BC government staffer Parm Bains, was interviewed by For Rise Media, a media platform with alleged ties to Chinese Communist Party foreign influence and intelligence arms. The rookie liberal was asked about the foreign interference registry, a bill tabled that year by his opponent, conservative MP Kenny Chiu. It says, "If you are elected as MP, will you support this bill?" A Chinese community activist asked Bains in a video segment for Rise Media, which you can see right here. The simple answer is, "I'm not supporting that bill," Bains answered. "I don't believe that I can support any bill that is viewed as discriminatory against any community. A registry like this, to me, looks like a very discriminatory policy." And then after that same day, September 10th, Bains got a front page election ad from Rise Weekly and a glowing endorsement article inside the magazine. titled, "Should Chinese People Support Them?" The piece urged citizens of Richmond, a riding of about 50% Chinese ethnic voters, to vote for Baines and Justin Trudeau on September 20th. It argued that Trudeau and Baines himself have promised to introduce legislation within 100 days of taking office to combat online violence, especially to severely punish online hate speech. Days later, Chinese Canadian Go-To Vote Association, a group started by Rise Media journalists during the 2021 campaign, pounded the pavement for Baines as he stumped near Kenny Chiu's constituency office alongside several of Beijing's top proxies in British Columbia. And that's the ad in question right here. And it was stuff like this that the Hogue Inquirer looked into. And they said, yeah, there's some concerning things that happened, but wasn't that big of a deal. Wasn't that big of a deal. An organization that had alleged ties to the CCP openly campaigned for one candidate over another and then smeared the other. They murdered Kenny Chiu over this foreign registry bill. Killed him over it. Called him a racist. Called him a racist. It's Kenny Chiu. Have you seen this man? That's him right there. What makes him racist? Because we know that this registry bill would disproportionately affect China. So where's the racism? I'm genuinely curious. And then later on a podcast, Sam Cooper dives deep into what happened with this particular riding and the concern that people have over Mark Carney leveraging this riding to gain political power.
Yeah, Mark Carney has been out to the riding in Richmond where Kenny Chiu's opponent, whether wittingly or not, very clearly benefited from Beijing's United Front highest level operatives, highest level in Canada media assets. The Liberal politician benefited. No one can deny that. No one of honor, integrity, and intelligence, because the evidence is there, right? Whether wittingly or not, let's leave that for now. Come back. But here it is. Mark Carney went to that very riding, and my colleague Bob Mackin, who's very good at covering the West Coast of Canada United Front networks, had photographs showing that an elite local listed official United Front leader was there along with a media entity supporting Mark Carney. So yes, Mark Carney is tapping into that support that Trudeau benefited from.
This is never going to change with this current Liberal Party. This stuff is an absolute mess. And what's going to happen is the fentanyl issue is not going to be dealt with. It's not going to be handled. It's going to be brushed under the rug, and the Liberals are going to try and drive us into essentially bankruptcy. They're going to drive our loony right into the ground by trying to print more money and just end what we knew as Canada. That's 100% what's going to happen here. There are some very serious allegations and very serious issues that are being uncovered by some of these journalists, and it's putting our country at stake. And as I said in previous episodes, Trump and his team know exactly what's going on, and they're ticked that we're acting like nothing's happening. We're allowing it to happen. We virtually have China right at the border of America and Canada. China's here, baby. They have some serious influence over our politicians. They are engaged in high-level money laundering, high-level organized crime, and we are just allowing it to happen with these groups who are actually helping fund the Liberal Party of Canada. And as I said, the type of smears that they've instituted towards Kenny Chiu, the Hogue Inquiry, the Foreign Interference Inquiry, the report that came about, has now been weaponized against Kenny Chiu to further fan the flames that he's just a racist, that he's just fearful, that he doesn't want what's best for Canada. And they're instilling a politics of fear in that riding right now about Kenny Chiu and using the Hogue report as cannon fodder to fend off any of the criticism. And they want to turn around and say, there's no foreign interference happening here. We just have an active foreign entity meddling in our politics with CCP linked media operating within BC and having an impact and striving to have an impact on the elections happening there. This is why the Hogue report was so bewildering to many. We were expecting big news and not much of it came. And it leads the regular person to think, you're starting to see all the stuff that's being uncovered by these journalists. It makes you think that it leads the reasonable person to believe that Hogue is covering for the Liberal Party, or at least covering for specific individuals in the party and insulating them from any type of criticism or legal action, essentially. And the last thing I'll say about this whole issue is you've heard about the Belt and Road Initiative from China. This is their huge movement and infrastructure plan. They're building down in Africa. They're building in different countries around the world to expand their influence. They're building bridges and roads and essentially getting loans from some of these countries in exchange for property, favors, this, that, the other. The whole plan is dedicated towards trying to expand China's influence around the world and essentially trying to take away America's influence around the world. from the Council on Foreign Relations. It talks about China's massive Belt and Road Initiative. And just a quick intro here. China's Belt and Road Initiative, sometimes referred to as the New Silk Road, is one of the most ambitious infrastructure projects ever conceived, launched in 2013 by President Xi Jinping. The vast collection of development and investment initiatives was originally devised to link East Asia and Europe through physical infrastructure. In the decades since, the project has expanded to Africa, Oceania, and Latin America, significantly broadening China's economic political influence. You gather that? So take that right now in your mind. Know that that's what the plan is, and try to make this make sense. Chinese government launches Belt and Road warehouse in Surrey, BC. And it's being masked as the Council General of the People's Republic of China in Vancouver extolled how the warehouses could be instrumental in expanding trade between the two countries. And you wonder why Trump is coming at us so hard. China's influence is expanding in Canada, and our liberal politicians are actively welcoming it. And do you know what sucks for us regular people? Is we're caught in the middle of it. We'll be the ones who are affected by tariffs. We'll be the ones affected by these new Green New Deals that they're trying to implement here in Canada and essentially siphon more money out of us so they can go to these initiatives. We're in a tough spot. And that's why us as Canadians have to speak up. We have to share things like this and beat the narrative that is being put out there by the mainstream media. It's a machine that the government has at their disposal, overseen by Justin Trudeau. Whether you like it or not, that's the reality. When you give massive amounts of money to the mainstream media, you own the media, essentially. And the reason why, but Josh, it's just you're just sharing a video. I hear you. But sharing a video gets the idea sent out to more people. It makes more people want to look into it. It gets more people concerned with what's going on. And hopefully we can turn the tide of the narrative in this country so that more pressure can be put on this establishment and we can take down the corruption that is clearly festering within it. The more that Trump says we're going to make you a 51st state, well, guess what? You can be upset by that, but the reality is we're already a province of China in some degree. And that I know is a tough pill to swallow. And some people who are just tuning in for the first time, you think that's hyperbolic? Go back through the last 2 videos I've posted and look at what's happening and look into the work that these journalists are doing. It is insane what's taking place, and we've allowed it, and our politicians are connected to it. Don't forget about the connections, y'all. And don't forget that in November, the month after Carney attended the annual conference of Financial Street Forum in 2024, next to the former governor of the Bank of China, Brookfield solidified a $276 million deal with the Bank of China. Or don't forget Mark Carney's praising of the Chinese government for their green initiatives.
I would like to salute the People's Bank of China, who in 2016 published guidelines for establishing the green financial system, a series of policy initiatives to support and incentivize green investment, including PBOC relending operations, specialized green guarantee programs, interest subsidies for green loan supported projects, and the launch of a national level green development fund.
And as Andy Lee pointed out, of course Carney would salute the Bank of China. They are one of Brookfield's big lenders. As she tagged and showed an article of Brookfield in talks to refinance Shanghai office towers as vacancy risks rise. And let's not forget this last piece. Brookfield is among a group of foreign companies that have been investing actively in China's renewables market. It has $18 billion USD in assets under management in China across various sectors. So Carney is very financially incentivized to keep the charade going here in Canada. Keep cozying up to China. And that's why I'm saying if the Liberals maintain any type of influence in this country, this stuff will not get better. We need to eradicate this so quick. These people are not good people. Granted, high-level politics, it's hard to really find good people in general. That's just the reality of it's a greasy game. But you know what I mean. These people are actively working with a communist regime to get things done here, and we are reaping the consequences of it. And that's why I'm going to keep asking more questions of the Hogue inquiry and why it seemed like she was so afraid to call it what it was and make the connections where they clearly were. China's been having some serious influence on our races here, and we don't want to fully admit it. And the Liberals in the House of Commons wanted to deflect and make it about Pierre Poilievre's security clearance. Well, quite frankly, the Chinese influence seems to be slanted in one direction. Haven't seen it much with the Conservative Party, but seeing a lot with the Liberal Party. And this needs to be addressed and figured out. So I promise, at least for now, I'll give it at least a day. I promise no more China stuff tomorrow. But this is a story I'm going to continue to keep my eye on. And the Mexican cartels that are operating, the groups that are facilitating and working with the CCP, the Chinese triad organizations that are money laundering here throughout our country, and pushing and maintaining the fentanyl crisis here. Because as long as this stuff goes on and it's not seriously dealt with within our government, the pressure from Trump isn't going to end. We might have moments like 30-day reprieves here and there, but if this fentanyl czar doesn't take any serious action, which I'm not expecting him to, I hope he does. I really hope. I hope he makes a racketeering law here within the next couple days, like within the next week. If the new fentanyl czar makes a racketeering law within the next week, then I'll be like, okay, there's something happening here. If nothing like that happens, then you know he's another bought-off shill that we expected him to be. And we should be very loud and end this nonsense that's essentially frozen our parliament. Have yourselves a good one. I love you. I'm out.